Welcome to the Mountain Chronicles, where the spirit of adventure comes alive. I'm thrilled to have you join our journey into the great outdoors. I'm Paul Piazza. I'm your guide through the wilderness and the storyteller behind the Mountain Chronicles. I hope you share in our love and appreciation of what this great world has to offer. Here we live in three simple principles: live, learn, and explore. Live, immerse yourself in the thrill of the moment, whether it be overlanding, exploring unique ghost towns, or simply enjoying the serenity of nature. We believe in living life to its fullest. Learn, cultivate that childlike curiosity. Every adventure is an opportunity to learn and discover something new. From overlanding trips to mastering trail navigation, we're a constant journey of learning and growing. Explore. Be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Venture into the unknown. Our chronicles are a testament to the places we've been and the stories waiting to be untold. Join us as we explore the hidden trails to the pristine lakes and the mysterious places this great nation has to offer. And of course, what adventure would be successful without proper planning and the right gear? We'll be showcasing some of the tools of the trade along our journeys. I truly hope you enjoy our chronicles and the journey that my wife and I travel through during our overlanding adventures. Thanks for watching.
Hey, this is Paul. I hope everybody's doing well. Today's topic is about how do you get started overlanding on a budget. Before we dive into that, a little humor for you today is, why don't overlanders always get lost? Because they pick up a truck. Thought that today you'd enjoy a funny to start today's video. So as I mentioned, the topic today is overlanding, getting started on a budget with your rig. Now, a rig to me means everything. It could mean a truck, as I joked about a moment ago. It could be an ATV. Yes, I've overlanded, semi-overlanded with my son on a long trip when he was younger with ATVs. And it started with very similar gear. And really, we're going to focus on what that gear is. As I mentioned in previous videos, I like to break things down into threes. So we're going to break it into threes today and discuss the three areas of where to get started overlanding, and three areas what I think are concentrations to get started with your gear. And these concentrations can be done really simple and are really what I see as the basics to start your adventure. Now, remember, you got to learn the first step of overlanding is be comfortable with the uncomfortable. So that means just willing to get out there and take a little bit of a risk of just trusting yourself in your abilities. We're going to go through that today. Thanks. I know the trend in overlanding today is to go buy everything under the sun, big awnings hanging off your vehicle, kind of looking like you're driving in a wagon train across the US. But what I'm saying here is you really don't need to do that. Really, what you need to focus on is three areas. First of all is comfort, second of all is safety, and last of all is fun. Particularly if you have children with you, the last category is very important. And that's really what I'm going to break it down into today. So first we're going to start with safety. Now, way back when I started overlanding, safety really kind of boiled down to just really trusting in yourself. And so trusting in yourself means being prepared, having the things that you need, some basic safety tips. So safety to start with, I think what we have in modern days is one of the most advanced things that you could have in your hand would be your cell phone. So the safety starts at home, right? Letting people know where you're going to go, what your idea of a route is, where you're going to have communication, the times that you estimate that you don't. And I'm not saying be rigid in your plan, because half the fun of overlanding is just being able to explore. But I think with phone systems today, you can say, okay, I have my phone, here's the areas I'm going to be in, I'll call and check in one day if you want to do that, or if you have other devices. So I think in the modern times, we have one of the most important things we can use is a cell phone. Whenever I think safety, one of the first things I think of on a budget is get yourself, even if you're not overlanding, a basic healthcare kit. This one has a tourniquet in it, so I do have a tourniquet that I keep in it. But this also has bandages, an ace bandage, a roll of tape. It could be amazing what you could do with just a little bit of tape, and a whole set of band-aids. I actually have two of these, one in each vehicle, and then I have a bigger duffel bag in my trailer. But for a budget, and if you're just starting, this is a good way to start. Just get yourself one in whatever could fit in your budget. This is a really inexpensive one, but I have an Overlanding one that was quite a bit more, but you could still find them for under $50 or $50 or more for a basic healthcare. Second thing I'd recommend, if you can't afford in your budget, is go out and take a class. I was just looking yesterday, there's free online classes on basic medical safety, and I'd recommend everybody start there. Learn some basic medical things. What you do if somebody chokes in camp? What are the best things to do if somebody has heart problems? How do you tell if they have heart problems? In fact, I have aspirin in here for just such a thing. I'm a little bit of a larger guy, so, you know, both for myself and for others, not that I have any heart problems, I don't plan on having any, but I do want to be prepared. So having a little safety kit handy is very important. So that was the first thing I would start with. And depending on your budget, you can go basic like this. This was like $15 to $25 on Amazon. You can go to bigger. Our duffel bag one was a little bit more, was like $150, but it has a lot more in it. But at least have a basic safety kit with some basic essentials that you could have on there. And you can find out some kits online. Also, in today's video, I'm going to link in the comments some areas that I found for lists for overlanding, especially if you're starting on a budget. But safety is most important. The next one that I find that a lot of people overlook, and I'm amazed, this is my shorty one, and I also have a bigger one as well. This one stays, I have one of these for all my rigs, is a basic fire extinguisher. I can't tell you how many times I've had to use a fire extinguisher, not on my vehicles, but other people's, as I've been overlanding, I've been camping, I've been somewhere where I see a car smoking or burning on the side of the road, and I've taken the fire extinguisher to it. So I always keep a basic one in my car, and these things have gotten a lot less expensive. So I'd recommend that you find yourself and keep in your car a fire extinguisher. If you're going overlanding, very important to have a fire extinguisher. I would say a shovel as well, if you have one that's handy. Very handy for fires and fire pits, if you have anything like that, but they also double duty as fighting fires. Funny story around there, I was out when I lived in the Sierras, out at the rifle range, and somebody had shot a bottle of Tamarite. If you don't know what Tamarite is, go look. I'm not a fan of it, but interesting, and he ended up lighting a bunch of grass on fire. I had a fire extinguisher that would quickly put out one of the fires, but it had spread when he shot, because Tamarite tends to spread, and we didn't have enough to do that, so I had a shovel, and I was able to put it out with the shovel with the rest of it. So a shovel and a fire extinguisher, I think, are two other key items that I would recommend getting for yourself. Very important, not only handy for you, but handy for anybody else that needs it on a trail, and a necessity in my opinion. The next one is get yourself a basic set of tools. It's a pair of pliers, locking wrench, set of crescent wrenches, set of long nose pliers, a hammer, some duct tape, baling wire. You'd be amazed what you can fix with duct tape and baling wire. So if you're gonna start, have some basic tools. I'm not telling you to be a mechanic. I'm not telling you have to do a bunch of stuff, but have some basic tools. You'd be amazed how easy they are to use around the trail. I mean, even something as simple as a Leatherman isn't enough, right? You gotta have just a set of basic hand tools to help yourself out. The next thing I would focus on, what I would call just basic survival stuff. Do you have food? Do you have to have water, right? Look at the number of water requirements that you would require for each day. So make sure you have some necessities. Look at the time of year you're going. It'd be amazed how many times when we lived in the Sierras that we would find people out in late February, or I'm sorry, late April, and they still get storms, and they're caught out there in a freak snowstorm. One time when I was a kid, I went backpacking, and I was 18, and we backpacked in the Sierras high up. We were at 8,000 feet, 8,500 feet in the immigrant wilderness. And we hiked in about 4 miles, and we got a freak snowstorm. We were in a canyon. We were prepared to be dressed semi-warm for it, but that same trip, we saw the kids walking, and they were Cub Scouts. In the note of Cub Scouts always being prepared, they were hiking in shorts and basic day camp stuff. We made it out, and that day as we were making out, the search team was coming to help the Cub Scouts get out as they were hiking out, but they weren't prepared for the winter hike. So know your areas and know where you're going. If you're going across country on a trip, know what the typical temperatures are for that area. These other two things are for recovery. These are relatively inexpensive now, $25 to $30. You can go to Harbor Freight and go to a variety of places, maybe up to $30 now, for a basic pull strap. It doesn't have to be one of those stretchy ones, just a basic pull strap. Will be amazed how much it gets it out. As you advance, you can get one of the stretchy ones that pull, and those are handy. But right now you don't need a kinetic rope. You can just use a basic one. Remember, we're starting out on a budget. It's something to tow with. Now this is getting a little higher in the budget, $50. I think they're $35. This is a Harbor Freight one. But this I found on sale, and I bought it. And it just goes right in. If you have a tow truck, if you're a tow hitch on the back of your car, which most cars do, you have something to tow on now. I've used this on my truck. I've used this on others. But make sure you have an attachment point. There's been a number of times where I've had to pull out cars. I had a BMW one time we had to pull out. Did not have an attachment point on the vehicle. So be aware of what you're driving. Be aware of your attachment points. That way you have a basic recovery. This isn't meant to be a full detailed list. This is just the basic necessities. I think I've hit on most of them. You have a way to pull out. You have something to attach to. But back to, again, fire extinguisher, water, whatever, food, know your area. And then last but not least, where we started at was, just make sure that you have your phone with you if all else fails. Next, we're going to go into the following. Next is comfort. Comfort's really near and dear to my heart because when I started overlanding, I was the kind of guy that would just say, let's go. And I'd literally bring a blue tarp, throw it on the ground as a bed mat. And I've slept on the Rubicon, basically on the rocks, with a rolled up shirt as a pillow right next to my Jeep. So comfort's really important. So again, sleeping bags, remember your time of year you're going, when you're going, where you're going, very important. Funny story about this sleeping bag, this is one I'll never get rid of. It's a basic kid sleeping bag, gets down to 30 degrees. Remember how I mentioned the ATV trip I took a couple years ago? Well, it was quite a few years ago. Paul was about 4 or 5. This is a kid's sleeping bag. It is rated down to 0 degrees. We were going in the Sierras. Well, somewhere along the line, I packed for my son. I didn't pack a sleeping bag for myself. He slept in this sleeping bag. In the middle of the night, he unzipped it and he said, Dad, why don't we just both sleep on the tarp and I'll put this over both of us. Gotta love my son, and it's a true story. So I'll never get rid of the sleeping bag, although it's a child's sleeping bag. So have a sleeping bag that's appropriate for your children if you have them with you, but have a sleeping bag that's appropriate for yourself and the conditions you're in. So look that up. Sleeping bags can be found relatively inexpensively at Walmart and at areas like that. Understand the ratings on them. The ratings aren't uniform, so know what you're buying. I would say, if you're going to stretch your budget anywhere, a good sleeping bag is a good place to start, and that is closely followed by a good tent. I'm not going to break out a full tent because there's snow on the ground outside and it's 0 degrees, and I'm not about to set up a tent. But one of the things I want to mention while we're talking about sleeping areas, a good friend of mine turned me on to this. This is a hammock. If you're really orientated and you want to sleep somewhere a little bit more rough and very comfortable, a hammock, this was like $8. And it's really comfortable. Sling it between 2 rigs, sling it between a rig and a tree. You can sleep comfortably in a hammock. I've done it, and I still do it occasionally when I go by myself. Not a big tent guy, and if I don't take the trailer, I often will sleep in a hammock. It's a good way to go. Hammocks are awesome if you haven't done it. Great way to sleep. They even make it for 2 people if you want to be cozy. I haven't tried one of those yet with my wife. I'd probably end up rolling around at night and throwing her out of the hammock. So hammocks are a good way to go. We're on the topic of tents. Now you can get anything from a big modern day tent that pop open by themselves to a little basic tent. I'd recommend, if you're on a budget, get yourself something that's appropriate. Again, know your environment you're going into. A good tent will be very handy for you and help you out. So having a good tent will make a big difference in the world, especially if you're in a rain environment. Again, all right, the last couple things that are on this list of just necessities and stuff for comfort is cooking. I use a jet boil and I use a fake jet boil. Both run off these little canisters. Great way to cook because my little fake one, you can actually put a pot on it and cook on it. When I went ATV camping, this is all I brought was this and my little jet boil top and my regular jet boil for coffee. Work really, really well, inexpensive. I think they're like 25 bucks at Walmart or less. You can find them around. They use these Primus cartridges, work exceptionally well, even up at altitude. We were up at 8,000 feet on our ATV run. they work really well. I didn't actually break out the jet oil, I couldn't find it, so I did find the canister for it. So good way to go for cooking, highly recommended, easy way to go. You can also get yourself a basic Coleman stove. 2 burners are really inexpensive. And can be found at a budget. If you're cooking a little bit more, you have a bigger family, maybe a way to go too. They use little green canisters that you can replace them. Good way to go. What I'd recommend if you do that is look at the green canisters. They're getting a little more expensive now, so you may want to get a propane hookup. That's what I love about these. They're still relatively inexpensive and can be used easily. So something to think about. Canister, little jet boils, work really well, very inexpensive to buy, and can cook really well in a wind too. And what do you cook with? You can see here, I have 3 essentials to cook with. One is my little basic pot and pan set. Has a handle that goes with it, has a pot. You can cook on these. These fit right on the jet boil, work really easy. They nest like little nesting dolls, come with a little carrying bag. This was $8.99 at Walmart. Really good thing to use for just a necessity. You can cook a whole meal on this. Better yet, you can get Mountain House too if you want to pay a little bit more. I'm not a fan of that. We did, when I went with Paul, we bought some basic hamburgers. I cooked them on this. We did some top ramen, cooked them on this. We brought munchies for the day. He had a blast. And that leads us into the next step. Really is about having fun on the trail. One more thing I almost forgot. One of the most important things is coffee. I'm a big coffee fan. And I absolutely love Uncle Phil style coffee. If I ever was gonna make a brand, I would call it Uncle Phil Coffee Brand because it rocks. But we used to make coffee out of a pot like this as a kid. I bought one as soon as I started Overland. To this day, I still make coffee out of this. My wife loves her French press. Many others do as well. I'm not a fan of the French press. I like Uncle Phil style coffee. You just put some in there. You get a couple grounds here and there. That's okay. It's all part of it. But it's good cooking it this way. Even better yet, if you cook it over an open fire, you just set it on there and watch it percolate and let her go. Coffee is a necessity of overlanding, in my opinion. The last part of this video is about having fun. That's the last stage and one of the last 3, I think, pillars of overlanding. No matter what you do, go have fun. Right? Bring a deck of cards at night. If you look at this portion of the video that I have a link here before, I think it's a few minutes in, you'll see that Tim is out there with his family having fun. They were playing cards. My friend Tim, I should say, was out there with his family. They were playing a card game, and they were laughing up a storm around the campfire, telling campfire stories as part of it. With my kids when we were younger, we used to look for critters. They would look for bears. They saw a bear. Funny story there is I took my son out young. We were driving on a trail before deer season, and I said to my wife, which I haven't seen a deer here in a while, so keep your eye out for a deer. Paul was just a baby, and sure enough, 20 feet later, she saw a monster buck came out of the woods, and she was just like freaking out. It's a story we still talk about today because he was just a beast that came out of the woods. It was just awesome. So in conclusion of this video, what I'm trying to say to you is going overlanding doesn't have to burn a hole in your pocket. You just got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Do a little bit of planning ahead, have some bare necessities that can be purchased inexpensively, or you can find them at garage sales and various other things. Goodwill is another place to find them. There's a lot of places you can find some basic tools just to go out and explore. The key there is just go out, have fun, and enjoy yourself. Have a basic rig. It doesn't have to be 4-wheel drive. You could go out and do this in a 2-wheel drive car if you wanted to. Most roads that you find in the Sierras, the fire roads, most of them are fairly flat and dusty, but I've been on trails that take you right down to a beautiful creek that nobody comes around, that you can simply set up a camp at and schedule out like 4 or 5 camps. Just look at the roads ahead of time. Ask the locals. A lot of them will tell you where you can go. You don't have to have a big built Rubicon. You can have a basic rig to get you out there and explore. Even in South Dakota, most of the places I've found here, you can drive a rig into. Last year on most of my solo trail with some good navigation looking at Google Earth, I could have done all of that in 2-wheel drive with a basic with my wife's car. And gone and visited like 8 or 9 lakes and done half the state. So you don't really have to have a fully serviced rig if you know where you're going and you do a little planning. So pre-planning can get you a long way for inexpensively on a good if you do some pre-planning for the trip. So just remember that. You don't have to go crazy for these things. Most of all though, I want to emphasize with all of this, make it fun. From pre-planning to thinking about where you're going, to prepping for it. Get everybody involved that you're going with, right? Have a plan. Make it a basic meal list. You'll see here on one of the earlier videos that I'll link there, my wife has a video planning on making a meal. And lastly, have fun while you're doing it. Make games so everybody can prepare and spot out different cars, see what different critters you can see. Get a radio if you need to, or just don't get a radio if you don't have the budget for it. It doesn't matter. Just go and have fun and get out there. Hope you liked the video. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.